Chaim. So, good evening. We're up to page 8. And we're in the middle of the page, the line that starts with the words Hatzme'ah. And we're in the middle of that line. Do we have it? Hatzme'ah. Middle of page 8. Almost halfway down. Yeah, in the middle of the line, it says, V'zeh haya avodas Avram. So, as we know, the whole Maimer is based on one akuda, the avodah that a yid does, and the schar that he has from Hashem. That the schar is bli gvul. Why is that? Because l'cha Hashem chesed. Because Hashem has chesed. Ki atet t'shalom lish k'ma'aseu. You pay everyone according to his maisim, but you're paying him much more because you're giving him bli gvul. And the Ikrim asked the question, how does it work? The math does not fit. You invest $1 and you get $1 billion or get bli gvul. And that's what the Maimer is about. And the Rebbe brings the pasuk, Anochi Mugain Loch, because I am your Mugain, therefore scharcha harbe ma'ot. We did not yet see clearly what the Mugain is. But now the Rebbe is going to start explaining that it comes from the level of Anochi. When you say Anochi Mugain, Anochi Misha Anochi. Anochi Hashem Elikecha. And the Rebbe is going to talk about the accomplishment of Matan Torah, what that brought to the world through when we do Torah mitzvahs now. The Rebbe began by asking, what was the accomplishment of the Aves? When they did the mitzvahs, Kimu Aves, Kol HaMitzvahs Achlei Nitna, what could they do? How did they do it? So the Rebbe explained they did it in Ruchnius, in a way of explaining Ratziv V'Shoiv, and B'chlal, what's in your Ratziv V'Shoiv, the Rebbe explained it, both in Malik Kolam, Seviv Kolam, and in Avedas HaAdam. Now the Rebbe continues, B'zeh haya Avedas Avram, Shayitamid B'Ratziv V'Shoiv. We're saying that Avram did the mitzvahs B'Ruchnius. And he did in a way of Ratziv V'Shoiv, Hainu, B'Vechinas Ratziv V'Shoiv, the Seviv Kol Almin, like we learned last week. What's the difference between Mamali and Seviv? Not just that this is Mamali and that's Seviv, but who, Mamali, it's about me. Seviv, it's about the Eibishter. It's about being Gala Elokus. Nothing about me. And that was Avram's Avodah. Shezeu Avodah b'vechinas Mesiras Nefesh. His Avodah was Mesiras Nefesh, putting myself aside. Nothing, it's not about what I'm going to accomplish, how far I'm getting. It's about doing the Avodah. L'chein gam lamata b'gashmios. That's why even Begashmius, the way it played out, Avram was not for himself. Not only in his Avodah, but Pashan and Gashmius took his life. It wasn't about me. On the contrary, in his own eyes, he felt like I'm superfluous. I'm nothing. That's why he's ready to give chesed to everyone. He considered the other guy more precious than himself, more important. He was just like moistus, extra. Why did he do this? Not because he had no goal, no agenda. He had a very strong agenda. What was it? By doing so, he was able to spread Getlichkeit into the world. Sha'amar, he told the people who came to eat, when it came to pay, the Medrash says, when it came after the meal, he says, pay up. By saying a bracha, they said, we don't want to say a bracha. He says, then pay cash. And when they heard the prices, they said, okay, we'll bench. To whom? He to whom whose food you have eaten. Whose food did you eat? Not mine. You ate from the one who created the world. Like we say in davening, Baruch Shama Vaya Elam. In Maisa with Rabbi Chanina ben Daisa, when his daughter lit the Shabbos candles by mistake with vinegar instead of oil, and she was crying. So what did he say? He said, Misha Amar Lashem and Viadlik, Yoime Lachaimitz Viadlik. He who said that shemen should burn should say that vinegar should burn. So what is the diakov here? Misha Amar. Misha Bara, the one who created shemen. So Chassidus explains, the same one who made the rule that shemen should burn, Misha Amar. In the Asar Ma'amaris, Hashem put certain rules down with his words. Misha Amar l'shemen v'yadlik. That same Eibishter will be Amar b'chaimetz, that vinegar should burn. And that was his kavanah from Avraham Avinu, to tell them this is all from the one Sha'amar v'yo elam. U'pirsem al kusei ba'elam chu. And he spread forth godliness in the world. That's what Avraham Avinu did. And that's why he didn't care about himself. The same thing in his own Avodah. He himself, not only when he dealt with others, in his Avodah to the Eibishter, he felt like I'm not a Metzius, I don't exist. He was so bottled to the Eibishter that he was like a chariot, just like a Merkava. Just like when you have a Merkava, someone who drives a car, the driver is in charge and the car just follows, has no opinion of its own. If it does, you better get out of such a car. The car has to be bottled, the wheels have to be totally bottled to the driver. So Avram was so bottled, he was like a Merkava, that whatever the Eibishter wants, that's what he did in this world. To the extent, Shehechlif Mekoy Midas HaChesed. He was Mr. Chesed in this world. That he even replaced the Midas HaChesed of Atzilus. To the extent, Mishkotzav Apardis, B'Shem Sefer HaBoyer. Amra Midas HaChesed L'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Midas HaChesed said to the Eibishter, Kol Yemei HaYos Avram Ba'aretz. All the days that Avram was living in this world, Lo Yutzrachti Ani La'aseis Malachti. I was able to go on vacation. I didn't have to do my work. Who's going to do chesed? Sharei Avram, Oimed Meshamish Bim Koimichu. Avram is standing and serving in my place. Harei Chichlif Mekoim Midas HaChesed. So that's what Avram is. That's how he did his avodah. And that's how he did his mitzvahs. V'zeh haya kiyum hamitzvah shalai. V'yoyz the mitzvahs hen gam kem b'v'chinas ratziv v'shayv. Our mitzvahs also are ratziv v'shayv. B'v'chinas halah v'amshach chulu. When we do mitzvahs, certain mitzvahs are like ratzai, like karbanos. Some are shayv, like putting on tefillin. It's all about halah v'amshach chulu. And that's what Avram Avinu did. V'lazais, al yidei avidasi v'ratziv v'shayv, the bechinas save of kol almin, through Avram's avodah, in the way of ratziv v'shayv, in the level of save of kol almin, but the oir ain't save, which is l'mayla ma'olamis. Rozeh kiyem kol hamitzvahs chulu. That's how he fulfilled all the mitzvahs. Likewise with Yitzchak. Yitzchak was digging out the wells. Yaakov moved this to Maklois. And Yaakov, by doing the avodah with the Maklois, with the sticks, it was all an avodah of the Aves, giving themselves to Hashem in a way of Mesidas Nefesh. Hakol haya avodah b'chinas Mesidas Nefesh, v'zeh kiyum hamitzvos. So what do we see here? We're talking about Avram Avinu, and how is he doing the mitzvahs? Selflessness. I don't exist. I'm just a conduit, a keli, through which Hashem's Ratzain should be fulfilled in this world. I'm no Metzias. As he's soon going to bring what Avram said, Anochi Afa ve'efer. I'm insignificant. I'm nothing. I'm ashes. I'm dust. That was the avodah of Avraham Avinu. Very lofty, very removed from Gash mystical world. But that was all by the Aves. Now let's see the other side of the coin. The mitzvahs that were given to us by Matan Torah. We don't need Mesiras Nefesh to do those mitzvahs. Just take a pair of tefillin and put it on. Take a mezuzah, put it on the door. Do we need Mesiras Nefesh? Rak, Basiyas HaMitzvah B'Poel Mamish. That's all we need. Do the mitzvah B'Poel Mamish, and that will be there. We bring down an oyer ein soif baruch hu just by doing the mitzvah. In other words, it's much easier for us than it was for the Aves. By the Aves, they had to have Mesiras Nefesh, total selflessness. We do it more in this world, in Gash mystical world. When we do the mitzvahs, it's not just bleak vol without cheshbainis. There's a kavana, hainu, a kavana de kabbalah, soil, malchus shemayim. When we do a mitzvah, we have the kavana that whenever we do any mitzvah, so we're taking upon ourselves the oil malchus shemayim l'kaim ritzayno yisbarech. Person is here to do the Tzayne Yisbarech Shenitztava Basiyas HaMitzvahs. Person who was commanded to do this mitzvah. V'tzarech l'kayim the Tzayne Yisbarech. He has to do the Ratzon of Hashem, so he's doing it. So what is our avodah? Much different in contrast to Avraham Avinu. Avraham was completely Lamaila Megashmi, is higher than anything to do with Gashmi Ha'elam. It was all Ruchnias. It was Ratzi V'Shayv, Sevil Kolalmin, Siras Nefesh. By us, we have to just get up and do that mitzvah. And do the Eibish's Ratzon. And this should give us so much happiness. This should create a simcha. V'tzarech liyeh simcha shal mitzvah. V'hu shesomeach bazeh shemekayim l'tzaynoi. He's happy that he can fulfill Hashem's Ratzon. V'hu eved HaMelech. We should be so happy that we are an eved of whom? Of the Eibishter. Malkei shel olam chulu. So this is a general kavanah we have for all mitzvahs. That we're serving Hashem, we're doing His Ratzon, and we're doing it a way that brings us simcha, because we're mizbaynein that Hashem took this little piece of thing, which is called a human being, put a neshama into it, and says, you're going to carry out my Ratzon. This should create such a great simcha. That's a
Rabbi Goldstein, I think something's wrong with your sound.
You hear me now?
Yes, Baruch Hashem. We missed, I guess, a few lines though.
You want to tell me from which line?
Yeah, we ended with we're up to Vagam Hakavana Pratis.
Pratis? Okay. So every Kavana Pratis, there are two things. A Kavana Klaus for all mitzvahs, and that should create a big simcha by us. And then there's Kavana Pratis, that the person knows that he is having a certain accomplishment by each mitzvah. When you put on tefillin, you put it on the arm and on the head, which symbolizes I'm serving Hashem with my heart and my brain. Shibud alev ha'amayach. And the same thing, every mitzvah has the pratistic thing. V'gam ba'kavana pnimis b'hamitzvah l'mayla. There's a certain kavana, what takes place l'mayla in Atzilus. We learned earlier in the Maimer that when you put on tefillin, it brings down the 4 levels of Meichin, Nimshach. Ein kol zeh b'v'chinas Mesiras Nefesh, but it still does not need Mesiras Nefesh from our part. Only the Aves needed Mesiras Nefesh, because they had to do something else. They were doing it in a different manner. When it comes to Avodas HaMitzvahs, after Matan Torah, you don't need Mesiras Nefesh. Just do it. Do what the Eibishter wants. We're not asking for anything more. Not asking you to climb up to the moon. Just do B'Poel Mamish. That's the first difference between the mitzvahs of the Aves and our mitzvahs. Before Matan Torah, the Aves did it with Mesidas Nefesh. I don't exist. I'm not here. I'm just a vehicle for Hashem. Save the Kalam and all the minds. Then comes another aspect of Matan Torah, a second part of it. That is Vaid Hefresh. There's Vaid Hefresh Yesh. There's another difference. Avram Avinu Alav Shalom. Harehoya Avidasim Tzad Atzmai. This is such an important point, that Avram Avinu's Avodah was all on his own. He wasn't commanded. Besides Lech Lecha, which was a commandment, which the Rebbe is going to speak about later, but the mitzvahs that he did was all on his own. There's a very big shaila. The Rebbe asked this question in a sicha. Avraham Avinu lived 75 years until Hashem said to him, Lech Lecha. What did he do during those 75 years? He was going around spreading Elokus. He had wars, fights with Nimrod, who was thrown into the furnace. He did a lot of avodah. How come Torah Shebiksav does not give us any stories, Torah Shebiksav, any recount of what did Avram do for 75 years? The first time we hear anything about Avram is in Parshas Lech Lecha. Vayem Hashem al Avram Lech Lecha. And how old was he? He was 75 years old. Of other people, other tzaddikim, you heard about them throughout their life. Moshe Rabbeinu, Vayigdal Hoish, he did this, he did that. Why is it that Avram didn't deserve that Torah Shebiksav should talk about his Avodah Gedolah, many of his nisyanis that he had before he was 75? The Rebbe explains as follows. Until he was 75, Avram was like a frume goy, like Chasidu Masailam, Tzadiku Masailam. He was like a nice guy. What does it mean, a nice guy? Mekayim Sheva Mitzvahs B'nei Noach. He's doing everything, but he's doing it on his own, because his seichel told him there must be a creator to this beautiful universe. So his seichel dictated that there is a God and to whom we should serve. And not only myself, I should tell everyone about it. Everything was based on Avraham's intellect, on his own will, his own habits. It's very good. But the Eibishter wants Yidden to know, what is the mahus? What is the essence of a Jew? Not what you do al pi seichel, and not what a person does al pi midos, and not because of his habits, but why? There's only one reason, one thing that constitutes what a Yid is. Kabbalas oil malchus shemayim. I'm doing it because Hashem said so. If you do it because Hashem said so, that's a Yid. Not because I understood. Because Hashem said so. That's why the pasuk begins, Vayomer Hashem al Avram Lech Lecha. Hashem said, Gei avek. Where? Me artzecha, umiladetecha, umibeis avicha. Go away from your eretz meloshin ratzain. Go away from your own ratzain. Go away from your own ratzain. Your own ratzain is to serve Hashem. So what's wrong with that? It says Lech Lecha. That's not what a Yid is. A Yid is someone who's geht weg von sich, goes out of his own Ratzin. From his good habits that he has, even if it's good habits. From dein Seichel, the Avaim, the Chachma and Bina. All of this is all yours. What does Hashem want? Go el ha'aretz asher ar'eka. Go to the Ratzin that I will show you. Do it because of Hashem. Das is a Yid. And that's why Torah Shebiksav is meramis this to us by not telling anything about Avraham's life until 75. Das noch nicht kein Yid. What's a Yid? A Yid is someone who does because the Eibusha said so. That's what the Rebbe is saying here. That the whole thing, the Oid Hefresh Yesh to Avraham Avinu Olav Shalom, Harei Avedasei Mitzad Atzmai. His whole Avodah was for Zich Alein. He did it on his own. And even, we don't see the Rebbe's Mechalik here before Lech Lecha, after Lech Lecha, but whatever he did was with the Eigne Keiches, his own Keiches. Val Kain, because it was only on his own, Lo Yigia Rak Ad Sheresh HaNivraim. He only reached to a certain height, to a certain level. Remember earlier we learned there's Ava B'chol Avavecha, B'chol Nafshcha, B'chol Meidecha means Ava B'li Gvul, but it's still within the human limits. Even B'chol Meidecha, which means B'li Gvul, it's still within the limits of a human being. Avram, as high as he went, even his Mesiras Nefesh, everything, went till Sheresh HaNivraim. He only went to a source. You could only go up to the roof and stop. You can't get higher than the roof. Why? Ki hanivra mitzad atzmai. The nivra by himself. You can't creep out of your own limitations. It's like an egg. Like an egg that has a little a baby bird in it. It can't go out of the egg. It's stuck there. No matter if it goes to the right, to the left, east, north, south, it doesn't matter. You can't go out of yourself. This is the highest you can go is to your shaidish. And here the Rebbe brings a mashal that's brought many times in Chassidus to explain this idea that if you go with your own kaiches, you can't go higher than your kaiches. What's the mashal? It's about a certain mikveh for the Kohen Gadol that was built in the Beis HaMikdash. It was built within the wall on top of one of the entrances of the Beis HaMikdash. We know that the entrances of the Beis HaMikdash were 20 amas tall. And on top of that was the mikveh for the Kohen Gadol by one of the entrances. How did the water enter? They took buckets of water? No. They took a hose? No. There was a well, a spring, from a place called Eitam, Ayin Yud Tes Schlossman. And there was a well, a spring. The name of the spring is called Ein Eitam.
Rabbi,
Do you hear me?
we missed you by the steps. We ended off that you were telling us about the Beis HaMikdash.
Okay.
Mikvah.
Beis HaMikdash. Am I breaking up?
Just for a second.
Okay. The Beis HaMikdash had the walls and there were entrances. The entrances were 20 amas tall. One of these entrances had a mikveh built on top of that 20 amas. So that mikveh, the height of that mikveh is higher than 20 amas. The floor of the mikveh is 20 amas above the ground, and the mikveh itself is supposed to be at least 3 amas tall. So the top of that mikveh was 23 amas off the ground. 20 of the entrance height, and another 3 amas, the height of the mikveh. Now, how did water enter into that mikveh? How did it get there? So they had a spring of water that came from a place called Etam, Ayin Yud Tes Mem. And this water was called Ein Etam, Ein like the word Mayon. And it would flow all the way from Ein Etam, from over there, and flow through the doorway, on top of the doorway, it will go into that mikveh. Now, here comes a simple question. Probably a Ben Chamish Mikra can answer it. How high was the source of that flowing spring? That means where it started off from, and it has to make its way all the way to the base of Mikdash. How high was it? Was it higher than 23, lower than 23, or exactly 23? So the Gemara tells us the fact that that spring was able to fill up the mikveh tells us that the source of that well was 23 amas tall. It can't be lower. Why can't it be lower? Because of the laws of gravity. If it would be lower than 23, how will it make it upwards 23 amas and reach the height of the mikveh? So in order that the water should be able to flow to the mikveh, it must be coming from a source which is at least as tall as that mikveh, 23 amas off the ground. Because if the source of that water would be, let's say, 20 amas, how is it going to go upwards? How is it going to go up those 3 more amas? The laws of gravity won't push it up. Maximum, it can go straight, but not up. Is a raya that because the laws of gravity, you can't go higher than your source. If you were able to see the source where that water is coming from, you'll see it's going straight across, not going upwards. It's just al pitev and shaykh. That's what the Gemara says. So since we know that the mikveh of the Kohen Gadol is 23 amas above the ground, we must say that the source of the water where it's starting from must have been 23 amas, equal to that height, because it can't go from lower to higher. Let's look inside and see. Vaharaya, mehamayan, from the well, ein etam, the Gemara. It says in the Gemara, Shemamina. From this we learn, mayon ein etam, the well, which is called ein etam, gavaya mikarko hazara, it's higher than the ground, above ground of the hazara of the base of Mikdash. How many amas? Chav gimel ama. Where did you get the number Chav Gimel? The mikvah the Kohen Gadol hayal gabe Pesach. The mikvah of the Kohen Gadol was built on top of the entrance. B'chol hapsachim sheba hazara hayu Chav ama. We know that all the entrances of the hazara were 20 amas high, and this mikveh was higher. How many amas higher? And mikveh has to be at least 3 amas tall. V'shir mikvahu ama alama b'reim gimel amas. Halacha is that a mikveh has to be at least 1 amma by 1 amma. That means 1 cubic amma. 1 square amma, Beraim Gimel Amas, at the height of 3 Amas. So you're talking about like a cylinder, a square cylinder, which is 1 amma wide, 1 amma deep, and 3 amas tall. So because we know the mikveh was built in a way that it's 23 amas off the ground, from this, it comes to be obvious. Shamayin hoya gavaya. We're on page 9. Shamayin hoya gavaya mekarko azarach of gimalam. So that means that this well, this spring of water, this flow of water, must have been 23 amas above the ground. But let's say it was able to defy the nature of gravity. Then it could have been lower and just go upwards. If this water was technically, let's say, would have defied the nature of gravity and go by itself, will go higher than its source. Then we don't know how tall was the source of that water. You can't say it's 23. Rather, it's obvious from this that there's nothing that can go higher than its own source. This is just a raya. It's brought many places in Chassidus. A raya proof that nothing can go higher than its source. You can't jump out of your skin. You could go as high as you can, but you can't go higher. Bim came. Let's go back to Avram. Avram, Shoya Vidasa B'Kechatzmai. His Avodah was B'Kechatzmai. Hagam Shoya B'Mesidas Nefesh. Even though he went out of his skin, that means he went out of his limits. How far did he get? Till the Shadish of Nivraim. At Silos, whatever. But he didn't go higher than Ishtalshalis. He couldn't go higher. It's Hadatzmai. Even though his Shadish is so high, it's at Silos, such a high level. But he ended up going from Atzilus to Bria. It says in Zohar like this. Compares Avraham to Moshe. Avraham Avinu, the way he was in Atzilus and the way he was in Olam Hazeh, he was like 2 different people. Moshe Rabbeinu, the way he was in Atzilus, the way he was in Olam Hazeh, he was the very same. And that's why, if you take a look in the Chumash, when the Eibishter calls Avraham, you'll see Avraham, psik taime b'gavayu, that there's a line, a stop from the cantillations, from the trup, that separate the first word Avraham from the second word Avraham, because it's not the same Avraham that's in Atzilus, that came down to Bri Yitzir Asiyah. But Moshe, when the Eibishter spoke to Moshe, the trup does not separate both Moshes. Loi psik taimachulu. He's not telling you why by Moshe not. What's brought in other places that Moshe Rabbeinu standing in front of Paray was the same Moshe of Atzilus. Why by Avraham it's separated? We get it's HaKadosh in Tesvav B'inyan. Alter Rebbe explains in that siman that Avraham Avinu said on himself, "What am I? But dust and ashes." Why does he use that example? Why does he use that metaphor? He explains over there that what's ashes? What's dust? If you take a tree and you burn it, down to the ground, it turns into ashes and dust. What are you going to say? It's not a tree? It is. Where did the dust come from? Where did the ashes come from? It came from the same tree. But the Rebbe explains the tree before had 4 elements with it. Eish, ruach, mayim, afar. Fire, air, water, and dust. When you burnt it, everything dispersed, and you end up with just ashes. What's ashes? It's from the very same tree, but a total different panim, total different picture here. That's what the Alter Rebbe says. The avasai lamata, the ava that Avraham had to Hashem here lamata, was compared like dust compared to a beautiful tree. Way different than his Avel Yoinad from the level of Atzilus. That's Avraham. So this is the second Nekuda that the Rebbe is bringing here. Kuda number 1 was that his Avodah Torah mitzvahs took Mesiras Nefesh. Mashen can us after Matan Torah, we don't expect Mesiras Nefesh. Just take the period film, put it on, make Kiddush, light Shabbos candles, do Gashmistika Zachen that don't take Mesiras Nefesh. As because Hashem gave us more koyach. It's not us, it's Hashem. The second thing is that Avram, till Matan Torah, Avram worked on his own and can only reach till Shedesh HaNivraim. Can't get higher. That's Avram Mitzadatzmai. And here comes the big chidush. The chidush is that the Eibush is giving him a matana. This was in the beginning of his work. You know what lech lecha means? Go back to your real source. This Alice, he went from Asiya, where he was like ashes compared to the way he was in Atzilus. And Dave says, Lech lecha. Go back to your own self. This Allah b'v'chinas Atzilus chulu. He went up to the level of Atzilus, and then comes much more than that. Atzilus b'chinas gevul. Even Atzilus is still gevul. It says, "V'agvul animtza mimenu tchila in hakelim da'atzilus chulu." There's a sefer called Avodas HaKodesh. Over there, brings a very important concept. Kashem sheyesh lekoyach bigvul, bilti bal gevul, kain yesh lekoyach bigvul. That if you could say, if a person would say the Eibishter is totally unlimited, he's so unlimited that he can't go into gevul. So Avodas HaKodesh says, you're saying by definition that the Eibishter is incomplete, that it could only work out of Bli Gvul, that the Eibishter could only deal with Bli Gvul. He can't work with Gvul. He has no shaykhs to the world of Gvul. And it's not true. Has v'shalom. V'daita hayom b'shavei salvecha ki Hashem hu ha'elikim. Ein noid muvadoi. That Gvul and Bli Gvul are the same thing by the Eibishter. And that's why Avodas HaKodesh says that Kshem sheyesh lekoyach, just like Hashem has a koyach bebilti bal Gvul, so too he has a koyach in Gvul. Where is this Gvul that we're talking about? That's the Kalim of Atzilus. That's what he's saying. The Gvul animtza mimenu tchila in hakelim da'atzilus cholu. He's not explaining it in detail. We're not going into that. So we're talking about Atzilus. Atzilus, not just the Kalim. Also, the Eidos are Gvul. It's still Atzilus. It's still a world. V'lachein Atzilus hu b'chinas memutza bein Eid and Seif v'nivraim chulu. This is why Atzilus is considered like an intermediary, a memutza, between Eid and Seif and the Nivraim. That's Atzilus. And that's where Avram could reach. But then the Rebbe says, V'yesh loymar, the Avram b'avodos had been Mesidas Nefesh. Because he went with Mesidas Nefesh. What did we learn previously on the pasuk? Ki ata teshalom lishka ma'asehu. That if the person is going to go in his own world, bli gvul, so the Eibush will give him bli gvul. Even though the human's bli gvul is the limited one, and the Eibush says bli gvul mamish, but lishka ma'asehu, the Eibush follows me, the connected mida. Saying that Avram, because he won Mesidas Nefesh, he gia gam bevechinas oyin soif shalamayla me'atzilas chulu. That's the extra gift. Scharcha maharbei ma'oid. Avokolze, but nevertheless, it's still not like Neshamis Yisrael. It's not like us after Matan Torah. You know why? Because still the koyach that the Eibishter gave to accomplish that only came down to the world by Matan Torah. So even though we're going to say that the Eibishter gave Avram Avinu even l'mayla me'atzilus, but only chitzaynius. Which is still bechinas sheidish u'moker ha'ishtalshlus chulu. That's the sheidish and moker and the ishtalshlus. Can say it in the tier? Avol mitzvahs shenitnu b'matan Torah. The mitzvahs that we're doing now b'matan Torah. These mitzvahs, the mitzvahs that we are doing, but after Matan Torah, shenitnu b'matan Torah, you know what happens then? Our mitzvahs. Wow, we accomplished so much. Why do we say Asher Kedishon b'mitzvaysav? What does Asher Kedishon b'mitzvaysav mean? He made us holy with his mitzvahs. So the Rebbe is going to take each one of these three words and going to explain it. And the next time we say a bracha and we think about it, be gewaldig. What's Asher? Asher is like the word Oisher. Tainug. Bechinus Tainug Elyon. Miloshain, like it says in the pasuk, Be'ashri ki ishruni banes, ki ishruni chulu. We're talking about happiness, joy, praise. That's Asher. When we make a bracha, we have a happiness. Asher, v'gliklach hashreinu. We are lucky that Hashem gave us the mitzvahs. That's the richest that we get. That's the oisher. The oisher that we get from the Eibishter because we're doing a mitzvah. We get connected to the Eibishter. Then comes the next word, v'kiddishanu. Kiddishanu b'chinas kodesh elyon. You reach the level of kodesh elyon, the highest level of kedusha. K'meshakasud. Manche kodesh tiyun lichulu. Ay mashakasud b'divrei hamaschil selachatevas hatzigoyfer leishayin ches. And then comes ubimitzvaisav, the third word. What's bimitzvaisav? Heina mitzvahs shalamayla, the Eibishter's mitzvahs. Doesn't say Hashem could shana bimitzvahs. Bimitzvaisav, with his mitzvahs, with the mitzvahs of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the whole thing here, that the mitzvahs are from the Eibishter himself. When we know that these are the Eibishter's own mitzvahs, and a mitzvah shalamayla, HaKadosh Baruch Hu meneach tefillin, HaKadosh Baruch Hu misater betzitzis. This is what the Eibishter gave us by Matan Torah. V'hainu, shezeu shenitnu b'Matan Torah. V'chinas matana was a gift. It's not we're so much greater than Avraham Avinu. Hashem gave us a gift. It wasn't because the usual pattern is triggers our word from below triggers Hamshach from Mamayla. No. This is the accomplishment of our mitzvahs. Dafka now. Dafka in Olam Hazeh. Because we are the ones who accomplish it. Because that's what the Eibishter gave us. With this, we could also understand a very important point here. It sheds a special light on the inyan of B'tachon and Hashem. We're bringing from Avodas HaKodesh, Kishem sheyesh lekoyach bebiltim al gevul, kach yesh lekoyach begevul. That the Eibishter doesn't only rule in the bli gevul, but also in gevul. What does that mean in practical terms? Well, it means in practical terms that the Eibishter is not in the seventh heaven, just looking and giving a general hashkacha pratis what's going on in this world. But the Eibishter is in every prat to prat. And the Eibishter is running the show. And everything the Eibishter does is good. And the Eibishter is ein oid milvadoi. There is no one else that has control over the Yidden or over the world besides Hashem. The Eibishter is the Koil Yachol. Not only did he create the world 5,781 years ago, but he's constantly recreating it, mechadash, with every one of its gevul details. Every detail, every gevul is from Hashem, not just a bli gevul. Not just Atzilus is existing now. Or Olam is saying Saif. This world, whether it's Brooklyn, it's Montreal, it's Eretz Yisrael, it's a speck of sand. Who made this speck of sand again? It was here a second ago. Who recreated it? Hashem. I once heard someone saying, if Chas v'Shalom, we're not sure that Hashem is the one in charge, so why are you putting on tefillin? Tell me exactly, why are you putting on tefillin? The tefillin doesn't make any sense. Hashem said so. Who is he? He's Melech, Malchem, Lochem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He created the world, and he's creating it, and he's in charge, and he's telling us what to do. He's in charge? So what? Only like certain hours of the day? Or the whole day? Or every second? Only certain parts of the person? Or the entire person? Only certain parts of his life? Or every detail of his life? Again, if Hashem is not in charge of every detail of this world, so why are we putting on tefillin? Chas v'Shalom. No, then we know Hashem is the one in charge. He's the boss. And no one else has control. And anything that's happening is straight from Hashem. Of course, there's Bechira Chavshis, and then there's Ishtadlus. I mentioned this already. The Rebbe writes to someone, says, you're asking me about Hishtadlus, that when a person has to do Hishtadlus, what does that mean? Why don't you just sit back and have B'tachan? Things are going to happen. The Eibush is in charge. You're putting on tefillin, yeah? So he's the boss. So why Hishtadlus? Says the Rebbe that the Eibush, it's like a Gezerah. Like a Gezerah Sakosov. It does not have to make sense why you have to do Hishtadlus. Because the Eibush is the one who's doing it, yeah. But the Eibush wants you to do Hishtadlus. But the Rebbe underlines, don't think for 1 second that the ratio is 50-50. 50 is Hashem, 50 is Hishtadlus, or 99-1. But it's 100% Eibishter. Hishtadlus has zero, mamish zero influence on the outcome. Only the Eibishter himself is the one who brings about results. And the results that the Eibishter knows is best. That's why we do Hishtadlus, just because the Eibishter said so. He wants it to go B'levushei HaTeva. So we do Hishtadlus. But the Hishtadlus has no influence at all on the outcome. It's only Hashem. And the more B'tachan that a Yid has, the stronger the B'tachan, the more it can be Megala, the brachas of Hashem in a revealed way, that we should be able to see Be'enei Basar, the Toiv, Hanira, V'Hanigla. Especially that now we entered Chodesh Kislev, Chodesh HaGeula. It's a very, very special time. And being that Chodesh Kislev is Chodesh HaGeula, it means that the Sha'arei Geula are open. The gates of Geula have opened. Beginning from Chodesh Kislev and all the Yomim Tovim that come up through Chodesh Kislev till the end of Kislev, which is Chanukah, the Eibshter will helfen, that we should be able to, this month, Mamish, Chodesh Kislev, Chodesh HaGeula, be able to say, we waited for it. Hashem is going to show us Be'enei Basar. We'll see and we'll celebrate together with the Rebbe in the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi, the Yom Tovim of Kislev, all the Yom Tovim, and may it be B'karev Mamash, Mamash, Amen. As always, this shir is Lili Nishmas, Miriam, Bas, Ephraim, Ze'ev, the Neshama Zob, and Aliyah. And we all know, and she knows the best Aliyah is through the Yeridas HaNeshama B'guf, B'chias HaMesim, and should be V'kitzur, V'nanu Noshech Ne'ofar. We'll be reunited to all the tzaddikim and all the neshamas and everyone good. Will be the simcha ad lo yada. Amen.